I'd like to just run by a little bit on my company and introduce myself. I'm the founder director of Advice International, started in 1991, and I've got 29 years experience in this industry. We have over 450 staff. We are ARC certified all the way till 2029. Uh, 23 offices across India, 17 cities, and a very, very large national network, ideal for recruiting from the Indian market. Next slide, please, Jennifer. Yeah. So, what was the impact of the COVID on the Indian economy and the education system? This is about both. So, the forecast by the leading forecasters as well as the Reserve Bank of India has said that the present year our GDP is going to be reduced to 9.5%, go negative by 9.5%. And last week they moved it from a negative 9.5% to negative 7.5%. And to my surprise and shock, our stock market peaked. So yesterday, our Indian stock market has been the highest it has ever been, with I think the worst forecast of our GDP in the last 10 years. I think there's only one thing I can understand from this, that there's a lot of money in India, a lot of money saved, and we have a lot of gold savings. People believe in deposits. We don't work on plastic money. We don't take loans, and people do save for education. Because education as a hierarchy of need comes very high, and people like to spend on education. So we do not have to worry, I feel, too much from an economic impact of the COVID on budgets. And also, Indian students do not like a break in education. An ideal student would like to finish a bachelor's and go to a master's without a break, or even between high school and university, a bachelor's degree, or even within the bachelor's degree will not take a break here. So Indians are actually waiting and raring to go. There was an ISEF survey which was presented by Ian last week, which said that 82% of the agencies felt that students deferred. And I would say that's quite true in the case of India. There would be a lot of deferment of those students who had to go in fall 2020. There'd be a movement towards Jan 21 and a movement towards September 21. Obviously, we had some people who were ready to take online, but Indian students are not very excited about online. And I felt institutions were not descriptive enough about what the meaning of online is. Because I feel online also has various grades of online, like how much is the live lecture, how much is recorded lectures, what about discussion groups, what about assignments, and there was not enough clarity on that. However, all Indian students, as soon as or if they could travel, were happy to travel. They understand that life is better overseas. I live in Mumbai. I think it's the second highest infected COVID infected city in the country, and people are happy to go. Students feel that they are mavericks. They're not going to get COVID, and they are happy to fly. So we did have a lot of students fly to destinations that were ready to receive students. An interesting fact is about face-to-face counseling. Though most people will believe that the way ahead is virtual or hybrid, I'd advise out of 23 offices, we have 21 functioning on a daily basis. We do get students come in. I surveyed my offices in 14 cities. 10 cities said we had more people walking in as compared to being ready for a virtual counseling. So we do allow students for a virtual counseling session either on Zoom or WhatsApp or telephonic. We give them an option whenever they inquire with us. And 10 out of 14 cities said students prefer coming in. Now, this was different in the month of September, but in the month of October, it moved more towards face-to-face counseling. In the month of November, it has moved again more towards face-to-face counseling. And the four cities where face-to-face counseling did not was not larger than virtual were the four cities where the COVID impact is high, like Mumbai, Cochin, Kolkata, and Trivandrum. These are the four cities where there was a high instance of COVID. and therefore the virtual is higher. So the feel I have is for counseling, people want to meet uh, our partners, our staff, and get counseled by our staff. Another big interesting reality of the Indian market is we had delayed results because academic results were delayed and university exams were not held. But eventually, when the scores were announced, in Delhi, leading colleges of Delhi University had cutoffs. That means they took students who had only 99% and above. And majority of Mumbai or South Mumbai colleges, which other colleges are more repute, have closed admissions at 86%, and many of them are 90%. So there is this pent up demand in India. So the market's there, is what I'm trying to say. Even though there is a COVID, there might be a COVID impact, but the feeling is that with the deferred impact of students who've moved from 2020 to 2021 and the loss that might come about because of economic loss, I yet feel for the US from India, 2021 would be a better year. Next slide, please. So, so here's a slide I wanted to put about brain drain versus brain gain. And I know that Indian students look at this list. They keep getting inspired by the leading CEOs. I've taken 8 CEOs of US large corporations. I think most of these companies are in the Fortune 500. And these people, many of them did study in the US, and most of them had studied their undergrad or this high school in India and then have moved to the US. So this list inspires a lot of students and is a motivator for students to come there. They understand that the US education system is the leading education system in the world. They know most universities high ranked are in the US, and US is top of mind. Next slide, please. But this, the fact that US is top of mind, there are several entry barriers, and if we as a group want more students to move to the US as compared to other destinations, we need to try and address these issues. These are issues that everybody knows, but I'd just like to run through them quickly. Getting an I-20, students need to get a financial document made. It is inconvenient. No one else, no other country asks for that. A bachelor's of 4 years, 16-year requirements of several programs, not very easy. I know some institutions are waiving it depending on West's rankings or evaluation, but it is a hindrance. The visa interview is an hindrance. People do get nervous. Most other countries do not have a visa interview. Even West evaluations for applications is is a big hurdle. Institutions should consider dropping this. Even sealed transcripts, recommendation letters is not what other countries are asking for. So we need to be more reasonable when we are asking for documents of a student. During the pandemic, many universities have become test optional and are not insisting on tests. But however, uh, GRE, GMAT, SAT, TOEFL, I think institutions should depend less on that and start looking at the grades that students have got in their local institutions or in the competitive exams uh, during their study in India. So quickly, what is 16 years? Someone just asked this. 16 years is a 4-year bachelor's. In India, we call it 16 years because most of our bachelors are 3 years. Very few of them are 4 years, and therefore it's called a 16-year situation. Applications in USA cost more than anywhere else, and most countries do not charge an application fee that encourages students to apply. We have I mean, US has, especially during the pandemic, students were not happy to be paying the same fees and that too for online. So institutions should consider that if they're trying to get more students. US institutions have been the most liberal in offering tuition waivers, scholarships, financial aid, and I encourage you all to keep doing more of that. Application processing times of 4 to 6 weeks is too long. We appreciate most students appreciate a quicker turnaround. They want to make quick decisions. They're shopping around. And many surveys have shown that the institutions that make quicker decisions get better conversions from the students. Students are looking at working part-time off campus. On-campus jobs are not that easy to come by. And it's not that students will be working all through, but they'd like to earn some money and get some exposure. Another barrier is that leading institutions close their offers, I mean, the application deadlines too early. So that too is a problem. Definitely, news has not been good in the last few years, and it has had its impact. In fact, what one of the panelists 2 days ago said, and I'd like to resonate that, is that there has been a damage that cannot be repaired, unrepairable damage on the education system, on the impact on the education system that has happened during the previous or current administration. COVID-19 has had an impact, and the large volume of COVID cases in the USA is holding people back from sending their kids, more so the parents for the undergrad. So those parents are not very excited to try and send their children abroad because they're worried about campus parties and COVID-19. It's the grads that might come across in the Jan semester, and later on will move. It will be the September intake, which I think post the vaccine, everything should be okay. The gun control also is something that parents are worried about, but it seems to have not. It's not so big an issue now. These all these other issues seem bigger. Next slide, please, Jennifer. So this is a quick review of a template, is what the competition is offering, and this is where the students are going. UK is preferred a lot because of a relatively lower cost, because program durations are 1 year. All these 6 destinations have part-time work off campus available. All these have post-study work with a pretty stable assurance that students have time to find a job or can work even on different casual jobs and not necessarily in the field they've studied, which is different from OPT. At least three of these countries have a clear path for immigration, and a large percentage of students from India are looking at a path to immigration. And two of these countries have a good portfolio of programs, like UK and Australia have a diverse portfolio of courses. But some of them, for unfortunately, don't have as many programs as the US does. So the US, yes, is a leading destination. When we look at the tuition, the US has a big range of high tuition fees and reasonable tuition fees, and even I'd say some places low tuition fees. The part-time is a resistance. Post-study work with STEM is good news. I think jobs will be available, but without a path to a smooth H-1B or a smooth green card or smooth residency, students are shying away a bit, picking other destinations. Next slide, please, Jennifer. So a bit, some people had asked about the visa update in an early question I saw when Abhijit was presenting. In India, we have 5 visa centers. They had a visa week all across these 5 centers, but the attendance was full and there's yet more demand. So a bit of information about the Mumbai Visa Center. Until last week, they had only 2 visa officers who were conducting interviews. I believe this week it's been upgraded to 7. So I hope that we will have more dates. Students are traveling around India for biometrics. They go to one city for biometrics, another one for an interview. Presently, the B1, B2, which is the tourist and business class, and student visas, only the other visas are not being. See that no dates are available till March. However, we expect and are seeing a high success rate approval. And I'd like to communicate that for the first time, I had a group of visa officers from Chennai who set up a meeting with me, 4 of them, and they had a large number of questions as to how and why agents fit into the system of recruiting students for study in America, and what's the difference between a typical good agent and a bad agent, and what should they be understanding, like what is the agent done so far for the student, what part exactly in the whole application process has the agent played when the student comes across, how agents help in selecting institutions. And it was a really interesting conversation, scheduled for half an hour and went on for an hour. And they intend to have more visa officers connect with more agencies, which I hope will help in them understanding what value a agency brings in a student's application. So next slide, please, Jennifer. So the forecast for 2021 is spring will have some of the deferred cases. A lot of the deferred cases will come across, but there's not real new student enrollment that's going to be happening for spring 21. There are very few students who got their grades in time to meet the deadlines or intake for spring 21. Fall 21, as I said earlier, will be good. As per a forecast done by ISEF, 25% of the agents around the world felt that fall 21 will be a better year than 2019. 54% felt it would be down, whereas 19% felt it would be the same as 2019. In my view, it will be the same as 2019 or better because of the pent up demand and the deferment. So keeping both in mind, fall 21 should be good, but it's what we have to keep looking about it is for fall 22 and beyond, because fall 21 is going to have the deferred cases. It's for us to keep the recruiting happening continuously for the next few years. That's what we have to be doing. So the Open Doors report has shown that the numbers from India are down 4.4%, and that's on the graduate front. And China has been up, in fact, 0.8%. When we see the following year's results, I predict it will be the same scenario. Maybe China has also fallen, but India also would have fallen. Even our OPT from India in the Open Doors report has fallen. But one of the biggest things that most students don't understand, that the number of students that show on the Open Doors report has a large component of OPT, and 42% of the latest numbers of students are in the OPT system. So we got to all work together and see to it that we try and get more students from India. Institutions need to be doing a lot when it comes to reducing the entry barriers, working closely with agents, because for the next year at least, we don't see universities traveling, and it will be more work with agents. They need to participate more in online fairs along with the agencies, maybe communicate better on their online programs, how they are, what do they consist of, offer scholarships as much as they can. Institutions should also go across and communicate with their governors and with the government in their neighborhood, trying to encourage them to open up students from India. We all know that the number of jobs that have been affected in the US are large because of the student export fall. I believe there's been a 6 billion US dollar export loss in the year 2020 because of the number of students that have not shown up. So institutions need to be working on a lot of things to make it happen. What we as agencies need to do is keep the name of USA flying high, regularly conduct events, get you to meet students on a one-on-one at fairs or even for interviews, encourage students to apply, help you with understanding the nuances of the Indian market, and so that you can recruit better and offer scholarships when needed. And as an association, ARC and NAFSA and NACAC all also have to raise the noise levels so that we can take advantage of the new election benefits. So we need to see to it that we all work together. One of the other panelists I heard say something which I absolutely love, that is, you are welcome here, and that we all need to work together to make students welcome in USA. So I'd like to end here.